And we can go on and on about ICT. We've mentioned a special project in Mandeville. Mandeville sells itself. Mandeville is a community with a lot of unemployed people, a lot of persons who are qualified, and you have a major institution in Northern Caribbean University that has maintained a strong focus on ICT. In fact, they won 2 years in a row this international competition, the Imagine Cup. And so we want to partner with them, along with other institutions in Mandeville, to establish a facility that will focus on the aspect of training, the development of human resources, but also the creation of significant office space to facilitate the plug-and-play facilities that investors want in the establishment of these ICT facilities. We are very near to the US of A. We believe that we have certain advantages, and we are going to be partnering with our colleagues in India to establish Jamaica as the ICT capital of this part of the world. And I'm so convinced that with our lower telecommunications costs, with the focus now on human resource development and the partnership with the private sector to establish office space, Montego Bay will no longer be the sole area, nor will Portmore be the second cousin. We are going to see now the emergence of Mandeville, and we have more developments in Portmore to enable us to create the jobs that we see. I'm going to turn very quickly and briefly to energy. And again, to go back to the point that energy is the single most debilitating aspect of our competitiveness. It has resulted in our businesses being unable to survive. In fact, I know of a number of businesses that are now out of business because they are unable to afford the high price of electric energy. This is the area that our government is going to focus on. Energy is pretty wide. Transportation, other aspects. We are going to focus on electricity, because at 40 US cents per kilowatt hour, there's no business in Jamaica, whether you're in the production of goods or you're in the delivery of services, that will be able to survive for much longer at that price. And we have done serious retrospection in relation to energy. We have looked back at our situation when we divested, when we sold the company to Merant. We have looked back at the process towards introducing change in that area. 2004, we introduced competition at the generation side. And if you look at the performances of those new players, JPPC, that's Jamaica Private Power Company, JEP, Jamaica Energy Partners, they are now the lowest cost producers to the grid. But the process towards enabling competition at that level has not really benefited substantially Jamaican people, because it is not complete. It is not complete. And it will only be complete when you have a fully liberalized distribution network. And I just want to spend a moment or two, because it is not easy for the non-technical mind to appreciate how you can introduce competition at the distribution side. And I want to say from the outset that we're not going to be building or encouraging the building of another grid. What you see out there, those poles, those wires, you can only have one of that in Jamaica. So we are taking that in introducing competition, we are going to be allowing new producers to interconnect to the grid. That interconnection won't be free, and we have to be fair to the investor that is on the ground. You want to price that interconnection at a reasonable rate to encourage competition. You also want to price it so that you can have service being provided in those areas that competition will not survive. There are areas that are remote, and that you have to ensure universal access is achieved And we are going to enable an independent regulator with sufficient strength and clout to develop that framework of interconnection. The concept is not too remote from telecommunications. Same thing. And this notion of electricity being a natural monopoly, that it can only be provided efficiently if it were done as a monopoly, is false. That's the same argument we got in 1999 when we were told that telecommunications was a natural monopoly. I recall, Omar, when we inquired of cable and wireless in 1999, how many persons, how many subscribers do you anticipate the country will have in mobile telephony by the year 2005? And we were told not more than about 40,000. Not more than about 40,000. By 2005, we had over 1 million because of competition. And what we envisage is that there is going to be such a preoccupation with enabling, with becoming more efficient, using newer and better technologies. The private sector being able to develop and to utilize what they believe is the best fuel source. And that ought not to be the call of the government of Jamaica any longer. That ought to be left to the private sector. They are in the business. And it is more than just the economic benefits from competition. There's also an attitudinal aspect to this thing called competition. I mentioned last night at the meeting that last week, Thursday, I called the JPSCO and I said to them that there are 3 streetlights that have been out in my constituency on the main road. And I'm having a public meeting. And I would like to see if we could fix it. And they said, yes, we're going to fix it. I gave them the wrong date for the public meeting. I told them the public meeting was going to be on Sunday. It was actually last night. And when I called them yesterday, having been told that the lights are still not fixed, they said to me, well, the report is that it was fixed on Friday. I said, no, it wasn't fixed. Can you send somebody to do it? Yes, a team has been dispatched to fix the street lights. At 9 o'clock last night, we were in darkness. And it's an attitude, it's a behavior. And we're not going to beat up on the company because in certain ways, JPSCO has done well. There's also an agreement that we have to respect. But there's an approach that will, I believe, make everybody win. And that approach we have formulated and we will transmit it to the company in a responsible way. We are the government that brought in the most foreign direct investment, and we're not going to do anything to negate that. But energy, the price at 40 cents per kilowatt hour cannot be maintained. It cannot be maintained. There's one other aspect I want to mention, the Petroleum oil refinery. We left a viable project in 2007 involving the government of Venezuela and ourselves. We sold because we could not deal with the expansion and the upgrade of the refinery. And without that, that refinery will have to close. It is not going to be able to be sustained much longer. So we entered into this arrangement with Venezuela, and they purchased 49% of the refinery. The money, $63 million, was handed over not to the government of the day, but a couple of days after the elections. $63 million for the price. US. And that we wanted to use as our part of the equity into developing that project, into expansion project. That project has languished since 2007. There are significant benefits that will flow from that project. As a partner in the refinery, Venezuela is not hamstrung by the dictates of OPEC. They can sell to themselves whatever price they want. And we were negotiating with them a price much lower than the world market price for crude, which would pass through the refinery. But not only that, there was a byproduct called pet coke. And out of that project, we were going to develop enough pet coke to generate 100 megawatts of capacity. Pet coke being the cheapest source, fuel source. of energy. And we would have seen an overall, as a result of that project, an overall reduction in the price of electricity, seeing that that will contribute 100 megawatt to about approximately 650 to 700 capacity that we now have. That project has suffered from bad management. I believe it has spoiled the excellent relationship that we have had over many years with Venezuela. And I am quite anxious to hear from the Prime Minister. He went to Venezuela recently. He had certain things that he wanted from Venezuela. I want to hear what are the outcomes, because my own view is that the relationship is now at a low level, and that it will take a government of the PNP to restore that relationship and to get these projects back on the fast track. So those are some thinking we have. The oil and gas exploration project has again languished since 2006, when we awarded a number of licenses. If as a government you don't push certain things, you don't go out there to ensure that the licensees abide by the terms of the license, and by this year they should have started drilling. I have no doubt that there is a major hydrocarbon system around Jamaica. We have drilled 11 times before, 10 of them we have had shows, we have discovered oil, but not in commercial quantities. Not many Jamaicans know that. Of the 11 wells that were drilled, 10 of them had oil, but not in commercial quantities. We now have, through new technology, looked at more seismic data, and are convinced that on the southern side of the offshore, there's a place called the Walton Basin that we believe, if we pursue it vigorously, we would find commercial quantities, significant commercial quantities of oil and or gas. And we intend to resurrect that project. In 2007, when the then Prime Minister met with President Lula of Brazil, he